record, I am aware of how questionable this lighting is right now. It can't be helped. I have to get this done. Oh my god, you guys. This review. If you follow me on Twitter, you may have witnessed the ongoing saga of me trying to do this review and then failing. But now, here we are! We're finally here! It's happening! So today we're going to be talking about Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen as part of the Austen Adventures. For more information about the Austen Adventures, check out the links down in the box. And I had already reviewed Northanger Abbey and Sense and Sensibility last year when Ariel first tried to do the Austen Adventures, so this is the first review that I'm doing, like, in real time with everybody, so excitement! In what appears to be becoming a trend lately, this turned into more of an analysis than an actual review, so possibly some slight spoilers. Proceed at your own risk. I'm gonna start off by summarizing the book, but very briefly, because I mean, come on, it's Pride and Prejudice. You know what the plot of Pride and Prejudice is. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending that you don't. So Elizabeth Bennet is one of 5 sisters, so her parents are all like, oh shit, we gotta marry these girls off, what are we gonna do? Because through a combination of being fairly rich, but not quite rich enough, and old-timey inheritance laws, which is a common theme in Austen's work, they just do not have enough money to support all of these daughters if they don't get married. So, time to find some husbands. So one day, the very wealthy and eligible Mr. Bingley rents a house nearby, and Mrs. Bennet is immediately all, hello there, unattached gentleman. Look at all these daughters I have. Do you find any of them appealing? You can have one. Hell, you can have 2. I just gotta get rid of them. Just fire sale. Everything must go. Just take a daughter. And Bingley does indeed take a shine to Elizabeth's older sister Jane, which is a pretty important subplot in the book. But the important thing is that Mr. Bingley brings his friend Mr. Darcy along with him, and Darcy and Elizabeth meet, and they instantly hate each other. And then slowly over the course of the story, they don't hate each other, and then they make out. You know how this goes. So Pride and Prejudice was the only Austen that I read prior to us doing the Austen Adventures, and I think it's still my favorite. In fact, it's probably one of my favorite love stories of all time. So because I like it so much, and because it's so well known that doing just a straight up review of it feels kind of silly, I am instead going to use this video just to talk about why the love story in Pride and Prejudice is so rad. Because Pride and Prejudice has basically become one of the major templates for romantic stories. And I love this particular template, but I totally get why other people don't, because it's done so often and it's usually done really poorly. So I just want to break down why Pride and Prejudice is so good, because I feel like if this information is out there, this will lead to fewer shitty romantic comedies. Which I say as somebody who enjoys romantic comedies. So to really do this, we're gonna have to first try to divorce these characters from their cultural context in our minds, because Darcy and Elizabeth have basically become almost mythical figures at this point. In people's minds, Elizabeth Bennet is, you know, the most charming and witty of all literary heroines, and Mr. Darcy is the dreamiest of everyone's pretend literary boyfriends. Kate Beaton actually did a really hilarious comic about everyone's boner for Mr. Darcy. You've probably seen it at some point because it's made the rounds of the internet multiple times, but I will be sure to link it down in the box if you haven't. But the thing about these two is, at the beginning of the novel, they're both a little bit awful. They're not like horrible, like they're definitely both still sympathetic, but Elizabeth is pretty judgmental of everybody, and Mr. Darcy is kind of an asshole. He's certainly not like an irredeemable asshole, and a lot of why Elizabeth dislikes him is based on, you know, misunderstanding and not having all of the information. And a lot of his problem is just straight up social awkwardness, which, I mean, I feel you, Darcy. But I mean, for roughly the first half of the novel, I feel like Elizabeth is kind of correct in not liking him. To illustrate, let's take a look at the very famous first proposal scene. This scene happens about halfway through the novel, and it is one of the most awkward things ever. So at this point in the novel, Elizabeth could not possibly have a lower opinion of Darcy, and is under the impression that the feeling is mutual. And then Darcy comes to see her and is like, so, I'm in love with you, and I think we should get married. And Elizabeth is like, what? And he's like, I know, I can't believe it either. I mean, you're not well born, and your family is awful. Oh my god, your mother is a nightmare. And then she's like, well, obviously my answer is no, and he is genuinely shocked by this reaction. So Elizabeth says, what would possibly make you think that I return your feelings? I mean, you've never been nice to me, and you broke up my sister and Bingley. What? How could you possibly think I would even like you, much less love you? And Darcy is all, I'm not saying she's a gold digger. Oh wait, yes, that's totally what I'm saying. Your sister is a gold digging whore. And then Elizabeth is all, I know what you did to George Wickham. And Darcy's like, you don't know anything about that. And then he storms off, probably to go do some Footloose style angry dancing. So the next morning, Darcy gives Elizabeth a letter in which he apologizes and explains things. And she is horrified and feels like an asshole and is immediately like, okay, I am turning over a new leaf because apparently I am an idiot who will just believe anything if it's told to me by a handsome person. And it's a really important moment for her as a character because it's the moment where she makes a conscious decision to not be so judgmental of everybody, to just be a nicer, better person. And then the next time she sees Darcy, she is really embarrassed because she's sure that he must hate her at this point. But he's very charming and thoughtful and very nice to her aunt and uncle who are with her at the time. And you eventually realize that the things that Elizabeth said to him during that first proposal scene actually got through to him, and he has made a conscious decision to change. Not for her specifically, he changed because she made him realize that he'd been kind of a terrible person. And for me, that's why the romance works so well, because for the characters to fall in love, they both have to change and become better people. Their character development isn't just a nice bonus to the plot of the story, the plot actually hinges on it. If you'd like to think of it visually, their character arcs form an M. They start just about as far apart from each other as they can get, then slowly over the course of the story, they get closer and closer until eventually they meet in the middle. And that is why Pride and Prejudice is so great, because it's not just about love, it's also about growth. Alright, I hope this has been fun, and that you're having a good time with the Austen adventures. If you're reading along, next up is Mansfield Park, which we'll be talking about at the end of June. Alright, I'll see you soon. Bye.